Hey everyone, first off, on behalf of our sponsors and myself, let me thank you for a great year of downloads here on the free feed. And since it's the holiday season, we thought we would give you a few gifts. From now until the end of the year, we will release for free full Patreon episodes. This year, we will focus on episodes dealing with new books that might make a great last-minute holiday gift for the Gettys nerd in your family, or, let's face it, a gift for yourself. We hope you enjoy these episodes, get a hold of one or all of the books, and join our community over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. And that's also where you'll find this episode in its entirety. And to make it easy for you, the link is in the description. But act fast because they become patron-only episodes on January 1st. So from all of us here at Addressing Gettysburg to you and yours, happy holidays.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today we are talking with an old friend of ours. He was on very early in our experience here with Addressing Gettysburg. He was one of our early guests, and he had a book at that time. Give me the title of that book.
Longstreet at Gettysburg, A Critical Reassessment.
That's correct. And he has a second book now. I'm just making sure you remembered your own title.
Yeah.
Writing the Longstreet Record at Gettysburg. And his name is Cory Pfarr, and he's with us again today. Hey, Cory, welcome.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me again.
You're very welcome. Thanks
Appreciate
for coming back. So it wasn't enough to do the one book. You had to do another.
I had to do one more.
Why?
So throughout the course of marketing my first book and going to, doing a lot of presentations and book signings and interviews like this one, I noticed some questions come up repeatedly, the same kind of questions coming up repeatedly that needed some additional detail, I think, that I wasn't able to get around to in my first book. So really, right after my first book came out, within 6 months, I started writing this one. So it really tackles six questions that came up repeatedly in the events that I attended in 2019 and 2020 and 2021 when I was marketing my first book. So that's what I attempted to do to sort of address those questions in detail that I was repeatedly getting.
What were those six questions?
They're right there in the book. The first one is, who started the Longstreet Gettysburg controversy? Was it Longstreet or was it the ex-Confederates who, began attacking him after Lee's death?
The lost causers.
Yeah. So that's the first one. The second one examines a sort of a controversial statement, I would say, that Longstreet made in 1902. Where he essentially told Daniel Sickles that he saved the Federal Army at Gettysburg.
Yes.
He wrote a letter to him in September 1902 where he made that claim. And that's one of the lengthier essays in the piece. So I go into a lot of detail on Longstreet's July 2nd attack and how Sickles really disrupted Longstreet's attack a lot. Is what I came to find in my research.
What do you think that gives? Because I know a lot of people who love Sickles.
Yeah,
they'll point to that.
Yep.
And as you know, well, he did good by doing that. And my argument is that first of all, Sickles did not know that it was going to go down the way it went down.
Sure.
And so that is a retrospective assessment of Sickles' move by Longstreet. Now Longstreet knew what he wanted to do, and he knew how Sickles foiled that plan. But to make it a defense of Sickles that, like as if Sickles knew, well, if I disobey these orders and I go out there anyway, that this is what I'm going to do. He didn't know that.
Yeah, he did not know that. No.
So he's giving Sickles, a slimy politician, he's given him some ground to stand on, which I don't like.
Well, I can understand that, and my argument in the essay is not that Sickles obeyed orders.
Right.
So that's not the argument I'm making, and it's not that what Sickles did what Sickles ultimately did, moving out to the Peach Orchard and surrounding environs, was, with the intention of disrupting Longstreet's attack. It just happened to do so for a number of details that I bring up in the essay, and we can go into those if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
So the main thing on July 2nd is that people need to remember that the attack plan for the Confederates, even up to the 4:30 p.m. hour, was to attack up the Emmitsburg Road.
Right.
That was repeatedly said by Longstreet to John Bell Hood in the lead up to the attack. He was, we know that that's where the attack was oriented toward, because the Confederates were still acting on that very early morning reconnaissance mission, that very early morning intelligence that they got that there was very little federal forces south of Cemetery Hill. Now, of course, by that point in the day, that wasn't true, because they noticed that there was a large federal force at the Peach Orchard by that point in the day. But nevertheless, the Confederates, even at that point in the day, were saying attack up the Emmitsburg Road.
Right.
Now, where was Sickles' left flank on July 2nd?
It was on, when are you talking, when he moves out?
Yep.
It's Devil's Den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how would a attack up the Emmitsburg Road square with Sickles' left flank being at Devil's Den?
Not very well.
And in fact, it doesn't even end at Devil's Den, because you have to remember the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters.
Oh, yeah, right.
Under Homer Stoughton.
Yeah.
Extend that line from the Slider Lane all the way almost to Bushman Hill.
Right. But as far as the solid battle line goes, it's at Devil's Den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's a 3rd Corps unit over there.
Right.
Homer Stoughton's 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters. And what we see with the Confederate attack when it gets off around 4:30 p.m. is that Hood's right flank brigade under Evander Law, pretty much half of that brigade is pushed much further to the right than ever was intended by the fact of the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters being there.
Right.
And to the point where they are all the way up on Big Round Top.
Yeah.
That was never the intention or the orders of the Confederate High Command on July 2nd. And unfortunately, for the Confederates, that is, that pulled at the seams of Longstreet's attack on July 2nd.
Okay.
And really pulled it out over a much broader front than was ever intended by the Confederates, coupled with the fact that Longstreet really had no rearward support on July 2nd.
Right.
So it turned out to be a single brigade front all the way on Longstreet's front. And at the same time, you don't have that concert of action between Ewell's Corps, Hill's Corps, and Longstreet's Corps, as was intended as well.
Right.
So what I'm arguing is that the fact that Sickles' Corps is all the way over there almost to Bushman Hill, and you have elements of Law's brigade going all the way over to Big Round Top, that was never the intention of the Confederate High Command, and that really, really pulled at the seams of the Confederate attack to the point where you only had Barksdale's brigade attack north of the Wheatfield Road.
Sure.
So what are the Confederate attack objectives for the day? Number 1, the Peach Orchard. Number 2, Cemetery Ridge. Number 3, Cemetery Hill, in that order.
Right.
Yet you have the majority of Longstreet's command attacking south of the Wheatfield Road, to include Wofford's brigade on July 2nd. So it really disrupted sort of how the Confederates went in.
Absolutely did.
Yeah.
It absolutely did. But it was completely an unintended consequence. He couldn't have known that was the plan.
He would not have known that. Right. No. He would not have known that going in.
So, I mean, it's not to, take away from Sickles entirely. I mean, the man did serve his country, yada, yada, yada. But, for him to, my move, took the punch out of Longstreet's attack. And it's like, yeah, okay. But you didn't know that at the time.
He would not have known that at the time. Now, he did try to make the argument, of course, that the Emmitsburg Road Ridge was better ground than the ground that he started on just north of Little Round Top.
Right.
And, he was under the impression, influenced by his experiences at Chancellorsville, and then also, that noon fight between Berdan's and the 3rd Maine Regiment in Pitzer's Woods with Wilcox's brigade. He was under the impression that there was something going on over there. The Confederates were wanting to seize that better ground in his front.
Sure, he wasn't ignorant to the fact that there was something going on in the area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the signal station was telling everybody. I mean, it's not like everybody's sitting there blind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's aware, but
there's a major Confederate force in his front,
right?
And he's worried about that ground. The Confederates potentially seizing that ground.
Yeah.
And he considers his position inferior on the morning of July 2nd.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, when you go and stand anywhere along Sickles' original position and you look out at the Emmitsburg Road, it's higher ground.
Yep.
And the enemy get their artillery up there, which they're going to anyway, and it's going to be useful during the bombardment on July 3rd.
Yep.
I can understand what he's thinking. And honestly, my whole problem with Sickles is not... It's not what he was thinking and why he went out there.
Yeah.
It was that he disobeyed orders and lost, 45% of his men in doing so? Or something like that?
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
It was a high. Yeah. So that's the problem that I have.
Yeah.
Now, it could have been worse if he had stayed. We don't know. He never did.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that Sickles didn't disobey orders. That I just want to make that.
Yeah,
I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
I do think there is an argument to be made with George Meade on July 2nd that he perhaps did not pay attention enough to his left in the morning of July 2nd. That he had his sights and his attention really set on the federal right at that time.
Right.
Because
well,
that's where the 5th Corps was going initially. That's where he was going to send the 6th Corps.
But the Confederate Army was all there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were on the, you have Ewell's Corps in the town and to east of the town.
Ewell's Corps was up there.
Yeah. And then you've got, Hill's Corps across the way, across the field on Seminary Ridge.
Yeah.
But then below that, you don't have anything. Yeah. There's nothing there at that point.
Not at the time.
So he's got to pay attention to what's in front of him.
Yeah. But there was some talk about potentially making an attack from Meade, the Federal Army initiating an attack from the federal right.
It's a good thing they didn't do that.
So yeah.
So this book though is a collection of essays, and before we started, I said the word defending Longstreet. You said, well, I wouldn't characterize him as defending Longstreet, but it's re-examining or what was the word you used? Is that the word you
examining?
used?
Yeah, examining. Yeah.
Longstreet. So go into that. Who are some of the people? Well, actually, in here, I'm going to go down your table of contents. Let's see. Essay number 1 is the Reverend Jones pens an essay examining the roots of the Longstreet Gettysburg controversy. So let's get into that.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people, they read the histories of the Battle of Gettysburg, but very rarely do we know what the history of the history is.
Yep.
Where does it come from? Why is it that, Longstreet and Stuart, to some extent, get the blame and Lee gets no blame? Why is, and I think people who are new to the battle who haven't really had the time yet to dive deep into everything, and they're just obsessed with those 3 days in July.
Yeah.
And they're reading whatever they can about that, which I did for like 20 years.
Sure.
They're not thinking about that stuff, and they're probably going, yeah, it's Longstreet, man, he sucked. And that's Stuart, man, he's just riding up north getting his name in the papers. That's such an oversimplification of things.
Yeah.
But where does it come from?
Where does the Longstreet Gettysburg controversy come from?
Where does Longstreet lost the Battle of Gettysburg come from?
Yeah, so that comes from, well, that controversy was really broadened right after Lee's death in October 1870. So in the first essay, I go into this a bit. Really, what they were peeved about and why they started writing about it after Lee's death was, number one, because they thought Lee was probably going to defend Longstreet in their attacks. Mm-hmm. So they didn't bring it up until after his death.
Because Lee was a fair man.
Yeah. So a lot of this comes out of these generals were, they wanted to defend Lee at all costs.
Right.
And they thought he made no military mistake. And during the war, every decision was a great decision. and certainly he couldn't